Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Cars and Coffee with me, Kenny Brown. Over the next hour or so, I'll be answering your questions, talking some tech, and sharing some stories. So we've got kind of an interesting morning lined up for you, and we've got some really great questions from the Speed Therapy Society, which we'll be getting to in a minute. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, based off a question I'll get to here in a minute, we're going to talk about rear end ratio. Choosing the right rear end ratio for your car. Speed Therapy, the next Speed Therapy Academy fall semester will be starting in November 2nd, and I'll talk about more of that in a little bit. And then we had, I think last week or the week before, people want to know more about some of the SUVs that I built, a long time ago. And so I've got some information on that. And then we've got kind of a show and tell on a new product, our rear diff cooler for the S550 Mustangs. Remember, we talked about if you've got an IRS car and you're going on track, you have to have a diff cooler. It has to be someplace. You got to be able to get rid of that heat. And see what else we're going to talk about. Of course, we'll be answering questions live. So if you have any questions that you want me to answer, go ahead and send them in, and we'll get to them later, a little bit later on. So I'm trying to figure out where should we start today. We've got so many good things to talk about. I think let's do this. Let's talk about this is like Omar's question, and it's a multi-part question, and it's going to lead into some gear things. But he wants to know what's the torsion that you like to use, 2.0, 2.7, or 4.0 bias. And what he's talking about is that's the amount of bias that the differential will send to the tire that has the most grip. He said, what's better for street or track? Well, here's the thing. If you're a full-on race car, 100% race car, a lot of power, you got to want the 4.0. You want to want the maximum bias. If it's just a street car, I would stick to the 2.0 or the 2.7. You really don't need anything more than that. I think the T2R is maybe like a 2.7 maybe, or 2.4. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, the 4.0 is strictly full-on race car. The other two, either one are fine. The 2.0, 2.7, either one of those are fine. It's a great differential. The second part of his question, on his 2011 GT500, it came with 20-inch wheels and 373 gears. He used the 305 35/20 tires, which are 27.9 inch tall. That's a really tall tire. Let's see, and I believe the gear is equal to 355 due to the larger wheels. Question, should I go to a 19-inch wheel size to use my 373 gears? That's kind of a multi-part question. A GT500, you've got so much torque at your command. You've got instant torque. You really don't need a super deep gear. In fact, I'd go the other way, not a deep gear, so that you don't smoke. Your wheels don't smoke every time you hit the gas. So I don't think that's I for supercharged cars I actually use kind of a lower ratio, not numerically, but instead of a 373, I'd go to a 355 for a supercharged car, just because if you got all that torque and you got a deep gear, you're going to spin the tires, and if you're spinning, you ain't winning. So I wouldn't worry about that. But what I did is I kind of put together a little bit of a chart, and let's see if I can. If I tested this earlier and it worked, so let me see if I can do it again, and it works. There it is. Okay, this is something I put together. Now this top part, this is something I did where we're building David's car out on the West Coast. He has an S197 Mustang, but it's going to run AIX in NASA, and he really wanted to do something different. So I had Wagner Race Engines up in Wisconsin build a all aluminum 408. That's a 351 stroked out to 408, and aluminum block, aluminum heads, everything. And it makes buckets of power. It's like 650 horsepower and almost that much in torque. And that's that's why I like, for this application, why I like the Windsor motor, because you can just get so much torque out of it. And as far as weight and size, it's smaller than the Coyotes, and it weighs less or about the same. but it's the torque thing. It's like there's the old saying that horsepower sells engines, but torque wins races. So anyway, we're putting together, he's got a 9-inch in it, which means you can pull the hogshead out and change gears like pretty easily. And I put this chart together for him so he could figure out which rear end ratio. These are rear end ratios where we were gearing towards. Remember, I said you need a lot of torque. You don't need a deep gear. And the way that I gear race cars is, the first thing I'm looking at is, typically fourth gear is a 1-to-1. And that's kind of like the gear we look at for top gear. Some tracks are really long tracks. You might need to drop into fifth. If that's the case, you have to have a transmission that's like a 0.8 to 1. Otherwise, you hit fifth and you go backwards. But the thing I look at for fourth gear, I want the car to be pretty much at red line at the end of the longest straightaway. So if at the end of the longest straightaway, if it's like 151 miles an hour, then we're going to want the 360 gear. So that's what I'm looking for. The next thing I look for in choosing the gear is where are we in the torque band coming off the turn before the longest straightaway? Because that's how we kind of gear the car, is you want to be right in the torque band pulling off of that last corner before the longest straightaway, and you want to top out that gear at red line at the end of that straightaway. That's going to give you maximum velocity. And once we get that one, then we'll go to what's the next longest straightaway, and we'll kind of do the math there. So that's how we end up choosing gears for race cars. And this is a chart that I put together for David. So when he's at the track, let's say he's got the 389 in there, and at the end of the straightaway, he's got to shift from fourth to fifth for maybe 100 yards or so. Well, in that case, we want to drop down to either the 370 or the 360. So he wouldn't have to make that fifth gear shift. Now, some super long tracks, you might have to do that, but I like to keep it, second, third, and fourth as far as the gears using on track. So anyway, I came down, I put some numbers together for a Coyote, and this is kind of like the tires we use the most are around 26.5 inches tall. But I just want to show you the difference and what happens with a taller tire. So if this is a 26.5 inch tall tire, 373 gears, and we're looking at 1-to-1, which is either fourth in a like a Magnum XL or fifth in the stock transmission. And with the 26.5 inch tire, 145 miles an hour would be 6,800 RPMs basically. It's interesting. You go to a half inch taller tire, 27-inch tire, and around the same RPMs, you go up 3 miles an hour. So it's not a huge difference, but there is a difference. And looking at the like a 410 gear, we use most in the Coyote cars. We'll typically use in the later cars. I use a 373 with a Magnum XL. That seems to work out really good. In like the earlier Cobras, use the Magnum XL with a 410. That seems to work out a little better there because they don't have quite as much torque. So anyway, so you say we have a 410, and at 132 miles an hour in fourth/fifth gear is again 6,800 RPMs. You go to 27-inch tall tire and 6,800 RPMs, you're about 135. So it's just a half-inch tire only makes a couple of mile-an-hour difference. Now on the 27.9. 27.9. That's a really tall tire. Same thing with a 373 at 6,800 RPMs. It's 153 miles an hour. So you can see what almost an inch taller tire does. And if you look at the 355, it's 160. So I mean, it's like in choosing the right gear. If you've got that GT 500, I mean, I 19-inch tires. Well, here's the thing. The way I look at wheels and tires, 18-inch are for racing, because 90% of all race tires are 18-inch, and most of all sanctioning bodies require 18-inch tires. But for street and track, I like 19s, simply because you got a lot of options as far as tire choices. And to me, a 20-inch is for show. I mean, I don't like putting 20-inch wheels and tires on track. So, I mean, to get back to your question, do you need to go to 19-inch wheel to use the 373 gears? With the torque you've got, I mean, you've got more than enough torque to turn those tires no matter what they are. So, I mean, I'd stick with what it is. If you're going to go on track, though, I recommend you switch to a 19-inch tire, just simply because of the choices you have available as far as tire sizes. And most of those are going to be in the 26.5 to 27 range. Okay, so it's that little chart I put together. So I'll just keep going on questions for right now.
Sure. So 1 minute, Kenny, I want to interrupt you. That was really good information. And if you're just joining us, Kenny Brown, Cars and Coffee, this might be a really good thing to review again or catch in full. And remember, you can catch the replay on the Kenny Brown Performance YouTube channel, or else on either one of the Kenny Brown Facebook pages, Kenny Brown Performance or the Private Speed Therapy Society Facebook group. So Brian West is even saying nice chart, and you know how techie he is. Yeah. So he
what we might do, Carrie, is I'll send this off to Brad, and he can post it up either in the resource section in the society, or even wherever you guys put stuff.
Okay. So
that way people can look at it. But I mean, if you really want to, I mean, you go on, if you Google, I mean, there's a bunch of different places you can get the formulas to calculate your speed versus tires and all that sort of thing. So I mean, it's not really magic, or I'll say it is magic. It's not really magic. It's just a matter of math. And like I say, it's for all the cars that we do. I don't even worry about it. It's for the non-pure race cars. Coyotes will use a 373 with a Torsen. The 99 to 04 Cobras with the Magnum XL will typically use a 410 with a Torsen. So I just use pretty much those two gears, and I'm pretty happy with them. Speaking of gears, and going way back in 86, 87, when we were racing the Saleen cars in the SCCA Pro Endurance Series. Endurance racing is all about making laps. And if you're in the pits, you're not making laps. We did a back-to-back test. I think it may have been at Sears Point, which is now called Sonoma, where the cars came with a 308. So we actually did back-to-back testing with a 308 and a 355 to see if there was an advantage in going to a deeper gear. The result of that ended up being that as far as lap times were pretty similar. The 355 may have been just a tick quicker, but there was two things that influenced why I chose the 308 to race on. First of all, with the 355, they shifted a lot more. There was a lot more shifting involved with the 355. So a lot more shifting, not a whole bunch of improvement on lap time, but the big thing is the fuel economy went down. So, I mean, if you're doing endurance racing, like I say, if you're in the pits, you're not making laps. And if you're using more gas, you're going to make more pit stops, which means you're not making laps. So that's why I ended up sticking with the 308 gear, because it just made the most sense. Less shifting for the drivers, which meant in long races, you don't get as tired, and we got better gas mileage. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that factor into racing. Choosing gears for racing is like I was saying about David's car, a lot different than for a street car or a track car. So, okay.
One more thing before you go on, Kenny. Also, if you're interested in having Kenny help you figure out your gear ratios, just schedule a 15-minute free consultation with you. The link is in the comments. He's always willing to share his knowledge and help people out. So make sure you take advantage of that. He only has a few times during the week that he shares that. So make sure you click that. And again, Kenny, if you're just joining us.
I forgot. You're not here to hold up a little sign. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Cars and Coffee, where we're spending the next 45 minutes or so sharing some tech stuff, stories, and answering your questions. Which reminds me, if you've got questions, go ahead and send them in, and we will get to them a little bit later on. I know what I should talk about. Dan Gurney. I decided to we had the Saleen up there last week because we talked about the Saleen days. So I decided to put Dan Gurney up this week. He used to be behind my desk for the longest time, and I swapped him out and put my Ron Burton, Kenny's Wild Horses picture up there. But this is going to be a test. As you can see, this is obviously he's driving a Cobra Daytona Coupe at Le Mans. And so my question is, I want to see who gets the right answer. As you can see, he's holding his hand up, and you can, if you're close, you can see he's got his lace driving glove on, and it looks like a Rolex watch, and he's blocking the sun. So the question I have, and you can send your answers in, answer it later, is he driving into the sunset, or is he driving into the sunrise? The sun is in his face, and he's blocking it with his lace glove and his Rolex. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. Okay, Brandon has a question. It's from something I said a week or so ago, and I want to just kind of like clarify some things. He says, "What's the difference between a 351C and a 351W?" Okay, the difference is where the engines were manufactured. W is Windsor. Engines were manufactured in Windsor, Ontario, and C, the engines were manufactured in Cleveland. Although they're actually, even though they're both 351s, they are different base engines. Now, I won't get too deep into it because I'm not a pure student of all that stuff. But the Windsor is kind of like the main small block family for Ford. The 302s, the 260s, 289s, 302s, 351s are all based on that Windsor small block package. The Clevelands are actually based off of one of the larger motors at the time. I can't remember which one it is. But actually, they used the Cleveland back then for their more performance type cars. I remember that the Panteras, I was working at a Lincoln Mercury dealership a long time ago, and the Panteras that came in all had the Cleveland 351 in it. So that's kind of like the big difference. The Cleveland they only made for, oh gosh, I think it's only a handful of years. Where the Windsor they made for 20, 30 years. I can't remember. So it's been around for a long time. The Windsor is just one of my favorite engines. I mean, it's such a nice little package. It's compact. You can make good power with them. So the rest of his question is, asked about the Coyote swap and a Fox, and you said go to a 351 Windsor instead of a Coyote. Nothing against the Coyote, but 351 is a really good motor. So I've been wondering about 351C, 351W. Okay, well, my preference, into a Fox is not a 351, but rather the 302, because it's smaller, it's lighter, and I like cars to go around the corner. And if you start taking weight off the nose of a car, it's going to handle better. The cool thing about a 302 in a Fox versus a Coyote, you put a Coyote in, and I know it's a popular conversion, but there's a lot of things you have to do, because it's not, they don't have a power steering pump. The alternators in the wrong place. You got to do headers. You can't use a regular, you got to get like a hydro boost or something, or manual brakes, because not enough room. Or if you use like a 302, the cars that Foxes came with a 302, everything fits. I like simple, the alternator, the water pump, the belts, the power steering, everything it bolts right up. The exhaust, boom, it's all right there. What's cool about the 301 is these days and age, you can get some really nice crate motors based on the 302. I think the one that's really popular is like a 347 cubic inch, which is stroked out. I think the coolest one though, if I had a Fox, what I'd be putting in a Fox is a 363. And that's based off of the smaller 302 block. You have to use a Boss block because it's like 4 1/4 bore, but it's got like 3.4 stroke. So it's got a lot shorter stroke than bore, which means it's going to rev really fast. But you can buy crate engines, 363, over 500 horsepower. Like how easy is that? You just drop it in and you get 500 horsepower in a nice compact package. No fuss, no muss. So that's kind of like the direction I would go. In fact, that's on my list of things to do. I really want to build a Fox with a 363 at some point. I just think that would be pretty wicked, but I want to have my new suspension in it, so that's like a year or so off. So anyway, that's the 351 is makes more torque. It's got more cubic inches than a 302, although 363 has more cubic inches even so. But it's a bigger, it's a taller, heavier motor. And like I say, I like cars to turn. So I like, that little 302 package is, to me, just as sweet as it can be. Although there's nothing wrong with the Coyote. that's probably the best engine Ford has ever done is the Coyote. I got one little story on the Windsor. This is going back years and years ago. There was a group within Ford that really wanted to push the modular. Remember, they came out, the first modular was a 4.62 valve. Well, Ford is like, you've got to have power within the system, and you've got to have friends, and you got to have influence. Well, apparently back then it was they were referred to, kind of casually as the modular mafia that really had momentum within management at Ford, and they had convinced management that they had to get away from pushrod motors and go to these modular motors because they could never make emissions with the other motors, and this was the way of the future. Well, as we know, that wasn't necessarily true. I mean, Chevrolet is still putting overhead valve motors in cars and making emissions and doing great. But I also knew, a friend of mine, Wally Beaver, was in advanced engine development at Ford for years and years and years, and he did a lot of work with Ford Racing back then. They actually had a Windsor package, a 302 package with unique cylinder heads, and they made a whole bunch of changes, and that engine actually made more power, made more torque, and got better gas mileage than the 4.62 valve. However, when he went to management with his report on, look, this thing is doing great, his superiors took a look at the report and just threw it in the trash can because the modular mafia had taken over, and that's how Ford switched from the Windsor to the modular. I will say some of what Wally developed in that package ended up in Ford Racing. It didn't go to waste. Ford Racing took the heads and some other stuff, and that's how some of the original heads got into Ford Racing. Anyway, I kind of got off on the sidetrack there. So yeah, it's 302 is a nice package. 351 makes a lot of torque. Plus, like on David's car, for example, the pure race car, I stroked it out to 408. I was originally thinking of 427 because that's kind of like a cool number. But talking with the engine guys, they wanted to shorten the stroke up a little bit for road racing, so it revved better. So that's what ended up with 408. But then again, I used an all aluminum block, so we took weight out. So all of a sudden, we got the weight of the 302 with 650 horsepower and I think 580, 590 pounds of torque. So, horsepower sells engines, torque wins races. So there we go. Hope that answers your question. Now, Dale, this is good. It's good. Another good question. You guys had good questions today. Yeah, just keep them coming. Are lateral locks, when we talk about steering limiters, necessary or helpful for track or autocross use? Okay, the steering rack limiters, when we use them is if we go to like big front tires. I think the GT500s actually came with steering rack limiters. That is so when you go full lock, that because you get bigger wheels and tires, when you go full lock, so the tires don't rub at full lock. So they put a steering rack limiter in, so you only go so far before they won't rub. And we do that for cars. We put like big fat, super fat, sticky front tires. We'll put steering rack limiters on again, so when somebody's in a parking lot, they don't go all the way and start tearing up the tires. So, but as far as on for track or autocross use, I mean, it really doesn't have any impact. It's only when you're returning to full lock. So yeah. If you got big tires and you rub, get some limiters, and it'll keep it from rubbing. Okay, I kind of got through questions. What else have we got coming up today? Okay, Carrie, should we go to the new product or should we go to the SUVs?
What are you thinking?
Let's go to new product.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I need to collect all the right boxes here. As you know, I am just actually a whiz at all this technical stuff. Not. Okay, here we go. Hey, hello everybody. I'm Kenny Brown, and I got a really cool new product I want to show you. It's a diff core for the S550 Mustangs. It's my new Kenny Brown S550 Mustang diff core. Well, that's enough, huh? And people that are watching us on YouTube and on Cars and Coffee, you've heard me talk about cooling and IRS differential. The turning, the clutch is turning, and makes a lot of heat. And there's no place for that heat to go. I mean, the diff is just this little aluminum pumpkin surrounded with rubber bushes. So, I mean, the heat has no place to go. It just keeps getting hotter and hotter. Now, live axle cars, you've got the steel tubes, big steel tubes, and a lot of mass to absorb heat, and a lot of surface area to expel heat. But with the aluminum diffs, there's just nothing there. Now, back in '99, when we first started putting Cobras on track, we kind of really quick that you could burn up a differential in no time at all. That's when we developed the first Kenny Brown disc coolers for SN95 cars. So the 550 cars, we wanted to do something a little different. Back then, we used the blue hose, the AeroQuip hose, just kind of pushes on with barb connectors, and there was a tie on that, and it's pretty easy to do. And we also had the true AN AeroQuip type of hoses, but they're a little more tricky because you got to cut them and assemble them. And most people went to push-on just because it was easier. And a few did that wanted to look like a more professional race car, did the AeroQuip lines. Well, we decided to make this a really cool package. So what we've done is we have gone to AeroQuip lines, and you can just see the quality of this stuff. This is high-end stuff, and they're going to be pre-cut, pre-assembled. It's just a matter of putting everything in place and hooking it up. So this is one of the hoses. Oh, this is what you saw on the bottom of the picture. That kind of looks like almost like a two-stage rocket, but in actual fact, this is an oil filter down here, and this is the check valve up here. The oil filter, you certainly want to get rid of keep any bits or pieces of dirt or silk shavings from getting to the pump. And the check valve, when you shut the system off, you don't want all the oil running all the way back down into the differential. The check valve keeps it from running back, and the filter filters the oil. And it's kind of cool because you can take it apart and clean the filter and put it back in. So this is one of the hoses that actually hooks up to the filter. And then let's see. This is the hose that hooks in to the differential. We're using the existing holes in differentials. You don't have to drill or tap or anything like that. You can just screw these right in, and you're good to go. Again, they're really high-end quality things, and pre-assembled. And this is probably the longest hose, and there's a little Adele clamp on there. And again, this is actually the prototype piece. We're going to make this inch longer because it just isn't quite long enough. So this could be turned into 1 inch longer piece. And this is the bottom. This is pretty interesting. This actually screws into the bottom of the differential, the drain plug. So once again, easy peasy. And you're saying, well, it's got wires on it. Well, the reason it's got wires on it, this is a temperature control. As soon as that gets to 180 degrees, it kicks on the fan and the oil pump to a disc cooler. Actually, as soon as it gets to 180 degrees, it sends a signal to the relay box. And the relay box will turn on the pump. And this is the newest low-cal pump. The ones we used to use a long time ago were big, heavy, and they made a lot of noise. Well, this is small, still heavy because of its quality unit, and doesn't make nearly as much noise. It's far more compact, easier to position in the car. So that's the pump that goes with it. The low-cal, again, high-end stuff. Now, what does the pump do? Oil cooler. As you can see, we've got a fan mounted on that. Okay. The thing is, when you have all the disc coolers I've done for IRS cars, I always have a fan. You never can count on airflow underneath the car. I know the GT350 Mustangs have like ducts up to oil coolers. That's kind of like a passive system. And I would just rather prefer always having a fan pushing air through no matter what. So the other thing is, it's really cool to stick the fan on there. These really long things that kind of go through there, go through the radiator, then you put a little tab on the other. You can see that little tab on the other side, just chop it off. So that's super easy. And then these are the brackets that we've developed for that. And come with it. What we're not showing is there's quite a bit of wire and hardware that goes with this. If I had to rate it on degree of difficulty with 5 wrenches, I'd say it's 3.5 to 4, because you do have to drill quite a few holes, because a lot of things need to be mounted. So, but outside of that, I think it's pretty cool. We're going to take some pictures so we put this one together, and we're posting them up for you. You can see how cool and neat and tidy it fits in the bag. So I mean, we're pretty excited about it. We've worked on this for quite a while to come up with, we felt, a really cool system. It's efficient and it looks really good, and it's compact. Keeps everything kind of like in that one area. You can see by the hoses. I mean, this isn't very long. That's the longest hose. Actually, from our old kit, we saved 4 feet of hose by doing it this way. So we're pretty excited. As we install this, and this is actually the prototype pieces. As we install this, we'll take some pictures and we'll have them for you in a week or 2. So anyway, that's my new Kenny Brown rear differential cooler for S550 Mustangs, and it's absolute must. Plus, I mean, this is all top quality stuff. And this is a high end super package, let's say. No junk, all top quality stuff. All let's say it's all professional race grade hardware and hoses and roll cooler. So if you've got a 550 and you've gone on track and you're getting overheating, and your light's coming on, give us a call, and we'll get you set up with this amazing new super premium Kenny Brown differential cooler for the S550 Mustang. Thanks for watching, and catch me on Cars and Coffee.
Okay, Kenny, I just have one quick thing. You weren't hearing this, but we had a little bit of volume, not volume, but we couldn't hear you very well. So everybody that was interested in this and wants to hear it again, you can visit kennybrown.com and just put in the search bar diff coolers or differential coolers, and you'll on that product page, there's a video of the same thing. So if you want to listen to it again. Also, Brad, can we maybe post this on the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society Facebook group page? That might be another place just to post it. So it's really good information if you're interested in that. And I'm not sure if you guys caught it or not, but we also do offer a universal kit for the IRS Cobras. So.
And universal kit for anything else.
Yeah.
You know, all the pieces are there, and you can sort of plumb it and put it wherever you want. But we supply all the pieces, so you've got the good stuff. Okay. You finished?
Oh, yeah, you're waiting for me to talk. Okay, yeah, I'll introduce this next section, though. I believe this is Rory Merck that requested the Explore information. Rory, you're in the audience. I see that. Let me know if it was you or whoever wanted Kenny to go over the history of his Explorers. Just comment in there because I misplaced your name. So go ahead, Kenny.
Okay. Well, I think you need to give me the full picture.
Oh, I didn't realize I was up there. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we had to do some digging. I've got more stuff, but I only, what I could come up with easily is what we did. But this is April 1997, and this is our primary Explorer package that we did all the development on. It's supercharged. That was had the Windsor motor in it, which made for a really, really great car. I mean, it was so much fun to drive. This actually ended up being Carrie's car. She drove it the most. And so that was in, I'm not sure what magazine that was in, but that was April 97. And this was by Steve Turner in Super Ford in February 97. And again, there's my Explorer GT. And what we did when we did this, we obviously did the supercharger, but we did shocks, springs, wheels, tires. I can't remember if we did anything with the brakes or not. That was like a long, long time ago. But here's another SUV that was, I think, of note. And this was in Auto Week, March 1998. and this is an Expedition. We did the Explorer and the Expedition, and this actually belonged to Keith Crane. And you probably don't know who Keith Crane is, but Keith Crane is Crane Publishing, and they did Auto Week, Automotive News, Advertising Age, and a whole bunch of other big magazines. They're based in Detroit. So I actually did a supercharged Expedition for him, and he absolutely loved it. And we really weren't planning on getting it into Auto Week, but just all one day it kind of showed up. So he was happy enough with it to have, who wrote that? Oh, Larry Etzel wrote that, wrote an article on it. Now, I've also put together just a real short little piece on some other things that we did. I mean, we did a lot of Explorers, we did Expeditions, and then I can't remember what the great big SUV was back then. I had the big V10. We supercharged a whole bunch of them. We even did some Dodge Durangos, pickup trucks. I mean, we were pretty.
It was a excursion.
Excursion, that's what it was. Yeah, we did excursion. We did the suspension, supercharged. It's kind of the interesting thing is we had to actually in the front of the truck, we had to cut out a whole great big section of plastic because we couldn't get enough air to it with the supercharger. So once we did that, it worked pretty good. Okay, so click, there we go. Okay, so here's, again, this is the Explorer. And like I say, I mean, we did the suspension, wheels, tires. I mean, it was so much fun to drive for an SUV. And then this is a special project that we did for Lynn St. James and Lincoln Mercury. We built this car for one lap of America. And the whole thing is, I can't remember exactly what the promotion was at Lincoln Mercury, but these two guys are both obviously Ford corporate people. And then the rest were Lynn's team. She had 4 young drivers, female drivers. And when we built this, we did a really good suspension on it. We did not a full cage, but a pretty good internal structure. We put a cage in it just in case, for cargo seats, harness belts, because with one lap America, it was like you had to drive from track to track to track and then put your best lap in at the track you're at. So they would take, the girls would take turns, different tracks and driving, and they all were racers. I mean, they were up and coming racers at the time. And we had to put a whole bunch of extra electrical ports in there because what they were doing is they went from city to city to city. Ford had them, or Lincoln Mercury had them set up with interviews, and so they were doing live interviews while they were driving for radio and TV stations for the entire course of the trip. It was kind of cool. I mean, it started at Watkins Glen and it ended up at Watkins Glen, so that was kind of a fun project. And then after that, I mean, Lynn drove this truck for years. I mean, just turned into her daily driver. I mean, we kind of put the suspension alignment back to street and put street tires on it. And she loved it. She just drove and drove it. So that was kind of a fun project. This was also a cool project. This was a SEMA car. I can't remember what year it was, but our mission was to do a supercharged SUV that makes a statement. And we're pretty proud of this. I mean, this was a really cool car. I mean, we developed the body kit with some guys I know up in Detroit. Again, it started in clay, went from clay into prototype plastic, and the grill was different, the cladding was different. We had Recaro seats in there, and one of the sponsors that we also had was Avarex, and they did like Air Force bomber jackets and flight jackets, leather jackets with the fuzzy stuff. And so we had like the interior was like a bomber jacket. We had leather and sheepskin on the seats, and it was a pretty cool package. And you can just see the how we changed the whole front of the car. And the people at Lincoln were so impressed with it. They wanted to know if they wanted us to get together with one of their suppliers in Detroit to see if we could get all the panels built, because they wanted to do like I think a 2,000 production run. But the problem was timing. They had a really short, from a timing standpoint, there wasn't enough time to get together with the company, the supplier in Detroit, to make all the parts. So we're so close to a major program with this. But it was a really cool SUV, and it's kind of lists some of the stuff in there. Yeah, because it was that I forgot that actually had the 4.6 double overhead cam, a 4-valve motor, and we supercharged that. You know, we did a lot of supercharging back in those days, and it was yeah. Oh yeah, well, also I forgot Alpine was also part of the program, and we had the whole inside was really done up with all this Alpine TVs and all that, because and with Avarex they did the bomber jacket interior, and aside from SEMA, it went back out to Las Vegas for the apparel show in the Avarex display, and then also it was at the Detroit Auto Show for Alpine in their display. So I mean, the truck got around quite a bit. It was really fun to drive. 4-valve. There's nothing better than a 4-valve with a supercharger on it. Let's see. And then this was another project. I really couldn't find many pictures. This is in '99. Actually the guy that helped me with the suspension on the Mustang, you know, back in '86 and '87 was, I think this is 99 maybe. I can't remember exactly. But he was actually in the Windstar division, and they wanted to do a project car for SEMA. And my mission was a minivan cool enough for Dad to drive. Well, we did it. I mean, again, suspension. Nobody really made cool suspension parts, so we took the existing like struts and we put Coney inserts in them. We did bigger brakes. I knew the guys in the Thunderbird group, and they had they always had garages in storage full of this stuff they didn't use anymore. I came up with, they had like a 3.8 V6 in it. So I came up with a 3.8 Eaton supercharger for it. So it was supercharged. And again, we had Recaro seats. It had, at the time, it had 2 different drop-down TV screens, one for the second row, one for the third row. And again, Recaro seats. I mean, it was, the coolest thing was chasing down Corvettes on entrance ramps to the on the interstate and then passing them when you got there. That was a lot of fun to drive. Carrie even liked driving that car. And here's a little bit of the detail. You can see the supercharger package we put on. Had to do a lot of fabrication to make it work. Again, the leather Recaros. I mean, that was a really, really fun. And you can see we put Cobra brakes on it. So those are 20-inch wheels. Back then, 20-inch wheels are, 20-inch wheels anymore are pretty commonplace. Okay, well, it looks like Carrie snuck in something here. So it looks like she snuck in the Speed Therapy Academy. Again, this is going to be the 3rd one. And anybody that's attended one before can tell you that the amount of information that I share and that you learn is absolutely priceless. Things I talk about in Cars and Coffee, we actually go into a lot more detail. In fact, I don't call them classes, we call them immersion sessions, because we really like to go deep. Certainly we talk about my 5 secrets: chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. But we go, take a really kind of deep dive like shocks. Shocks for an entire week. We talk about construction types and all those sort of things. Suspension is a 2-week. 2 weeks of suspension. We not only go through all the different suspension types, but I really get into geometry, and I share some secrets on geometry, because I don't think there's anybody else in the aftermarket, and I know in the Mustang segment for sure, that puts the amount of effort into suspension geometry that I have over the past well, since 1987. Like the suspension in the S197 is AGS 4.0. That's Advanced Geometry Suspension Systems, 4th generation. So, I mean, it's, that's why my cars just work so darn good. So, and then we go through a lot of the fundamentals. We talk about setting up a car, tuning a car, on track. Then we have what seems to be really, really popular. We have master classes where I know a lot of people in the industry, and we'll have somebody come in and they'll talk about their area of expertise for maybe 20 minutes or so. Now, the academy is not like this. The academy is actually in Zoom. So it's like everybody's there and everybody can talk, and I can talk to everybody. And they'll talk about their area of expertise, and then they'll open up the questions, for the rest of the hour or often an hour and a half. And we had like, Ben from Impact talking about restraint systems. We had Eric from BAT is where we get all our, the diff cooler and all our plumbing comes from there. Let's see, we had Doug talk about driving. We had Steve Shard couldn't make it last time. He'll make it this time talking about wheels. He's the Vice President of Forge Line. We're going to try to get Rick from Bear Brakes on this time. Who else do we have, Carrie? I keep forgetting people.
Well, we had the trailer guy.
That was really interesting. You think trailers are trailers. No, we had a trailer guy did an amazing amount of information on trailers. Who else do we have?
We also went over hardware. We had somebody on hardware and plumbing. We had Fluidyne with their talking radiator tech, cooling tech. So there's just a lot of them. And that what we do with the master classes is they're taught every other Thursday. And then the Thursdays that the master classes are not held is when Kenny goes into some group coaching sessions. He also does a 16-week immersion learning fundamentals of vehicle dynamics. And you learn how to fine tune you and your car for the ultimate driving experience. It's pretty awesome. If you're interested, the next session starts the beginning of November. We had to change the date, and I think Kenny, you're going to explain that a little bit later.
Yeah, maybe next week I'll have something to share on that. But there's been kind of like lots going on here.
So anyway, if you're interested, I think that Greg Drake is on, and I think Greg may sign up. Rich told me that you are chatting with your wife this weekend. So let's everybody send him some good mojo. He's interested in both the K-Link, the 4.5 K-Link, as well as the Speed Therapy Academy. So we'd love to have you there, Greg. You'd be a great addition. So anyway, I think that's enough on that. But if you're interested, there's a link in the comments area. And also you can go to kennybrown.com, and there's a link there. You can find out about it. And obviously, just give us a call if you're interested and have questions. We're here to answer your questions. Yeah,
the other thing, there's a bunch of perks to go with it. Like you get 10% off on Kenny Brown products. And we've had a couple people sign up for the Academy and then use their discount to buy stuff. We also have discounts on Bear Brake products. And for any of the Academy people, we send them their brake pads pre-vetted, so you don't have to waste a whole session doing that, and a number of other little things. So
yeah, that's a pretty good deal. I just see that Steve Reynolds is on, and he signed up for the Speed Therapy Academy too. Hi, Steve. Good to see you here. Oh, I'm not Reynolds. Steve, that's your wife's name, Maggie Reynolds. Steve Hammond, I think. So anyway, Steve, good to have you here today.
Yeah, I think I saw Brian out there, and Brian is an alumni of the Academy.
Actually, we have a number of them. Tim Allen's here. Brian Westcliff is here. I think Joe Johnson is on track, so he's always here. Cliff mentions that the Academy is well worth the immersion. Help me get to the next level involvement with my car. Thank you, Cliff. That was very nice. So we're just, all the Speed Therapy Academy people become our friends. So it's really fun to have that small, intimate group together. So anyway, let's move on. I think it's time for questions.
Okay.
Unless you have something else, Kenny.
Nope, I'm just looking at my list, and I think I've gone over everything. I might point out that we're really busy. I hadn't even taken a look at next week. So why don't you send me in through the society or Facebook what you'd like me to talk about next week? Because like I say, I talk about what you want to know about. So give us some suggestions on what you'd like, or I'll send your questions in, send some suggestions. And we also will go back and pull some questions out that people have sent in prior. So with that, I think we can get to this week's questions.
Sure. And anyway, let me get to this. Okay, so I'm going to look through these questions. One thing I thought was pretty interesting is the conversation between Greg Drake. I think I mentioned he's planning on hopefully joining the Speed Therapy Academy. He said, yes, the CFO needs to approve it.
And then we know all about that.
And then
has anybody sent in whether Dan Gurney is driving into the sunset or the sunrise?
Actually, there was a question on that. Greg Drake said, is he driving east or west?
Don't know.
So do you know the answer, Ken? I don't think anybody can answer for that.
Wait, I know the answer. It's easy.
What is it?
He's driving into the sunset.
How is that?
Because if you look, they still have the covers on the headlights.
Ah.
See, they would cover the headlights until dark, and then they'd uncover them so there wouldn't be bugs and oil and stuff on them. So you can see the headlights and the driving lights are still covered. So that means he is driving into the sunset.
Oh, that is really cool.
So
that is awesome. So let's, if you have any questions, ask them now. I'm going to go back. We don't have a lot of questions today, Kenny, but we have a lot of regulars here in the audience. So it's really fun to see you here. Let me get back to, okay, there's just a lot of interesting chat though. Brian, this is back to your talking about your engines, aftermarket, SBF, I'm sure that's short blocks, something best of both worlds, short or tall blocks, Cleveland mains. Does that make sense to you, Ken?
Yeah, there's another, I talked about the Cleveland and the Windsor. There's also an M in there, 351M. A lot of people call it modified. That's what I think the M stands for, but I think the N stands for the Michigan Machining or something like that. It's kind of like a combination of both. I think that's based off of the 400. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of differences between the Clevelands and Windsors, and I think there's a bunch of articles out there on how to use the Cleveland heads on a Windsor and things like that. But now I just, and all the engines that we did, we just never really got into that. So I got this much knowledge about the Clevelands. I know a lot about Windsors. So
a lot of people enjoyed your stories too. Greg Drake says, great story about Mod Motors' early years. And Cliff Glenn says, Kenny, your sidetracks are great. History, knowledge, and a better understanding for us out here. Love the 302 versus 351 Windsor talk and story. So that's pretty cool. Brian,
to me, the 302 is a Mustang motor, and the 351 is a truck motor. That's the way I look at it. So, no, okay. As you should probably tell, I just really, really like the little 302 Windsor. I just think that is such a nice little engine package. I mean, so it's light, it's compact, and you can make tons of power with it.
So if you are just joining us or you're watching Kenny for the first time, this is Cars and Coffee with Kenny Brown. It's live every Saturday at 10 a.m. If you are watching this in replay or just stumble across it, there are 71 episodes that are recorded on, you can watch it on the Kenny Brown Performance YouTube channel or on his Kenny Brown Performance Facebook page. But YouTube really has a lot of information, has all the full episodes, and then it has a ton of little tech tips, anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes of things. So if you want to know something about brakes, tune in there and you can look under the brake section, probably find out what you're looking for. Okay.
Yeah, this is episode 71. When we started this, almost 2 years ago now, I thought we're just going to do it for a couple of weeks and that'd be it. We'd be done with it, but apparently it's just, we're not done with it and we just keep going.
And I think you enjoy this, Kenny, too. So
yeah, I mean, I'm getting used to it. I wasn't very good in the beginning, but I'm kind of used to it now. And also, when you had your back issues and couldn't join me on Saturdays, I was like, for the first couple of times I did by myself, I was panicking. But I'm cruising through it now.
Yeah, in fact, I asked if I should come in with him this morning. He says, "Nah, I've got this." So anyway, he's becoming a pro. All of you have been with us from the beginning can probably see the progress. Anyway, here we go. This is back to the I think it was you were talking about the Explorer. You weren't sure what kind of brakes you did. You did the Hawk pads. Both Calvin and Brad commented on that. We have a few of our former and present employees on here, so good to see you guys commenting and remembering that. They also commented on the wheels on the minivan too. So Calvin was like, "Ooh, the SEMA Windstar." All those guys drove it, and I'm sure we don't want to know any of their driving adventures in those cars.
Yeah.
So
those wheels that were on the Windstar, we only used them for SEMA. They were 20-inch, and back then in '99, 20-inch was like a big deal. But those things were so damn heavy. I mean, you could just feel it in the steering wheel, how sluggish the handling got with those giant 20-inch wheels on there. Went back to, I think, maybe 18s. I can't remember. No, the car just felt so much better to drive. So, back then it was, they were big, but they weighed a ton.
And this car was, at its time, it was like the most high-tech thing. It had drop-down video screens. I think there was 3 or 5 in the car. I can't remember. And then the highest level audio system that you could have. So it was a pretty cool car. Kenny really thought this was going to be my car to drive, and I said, "Nah, I'm not a minivan person." So I kept driving my Explorer. Enough about that. That's too personal, I guess. You guys don't care.
Okay, let's move along.
Okay, yeah. Tim Allen, this is back to the Academy. He's one of our Speed Therapy Academy alumni. Academy is amazing. Best source of technical help and info I've ever encountered. Kenny Brown has a really great team. Oh, thanks, Tim. And Kenny is the master at sharing that information. The other thing for all the Speed Therapy Academy alumni out there, remember next Wednesday is our monthly meeting. We get together the first Wednesday of every month, and we chit chat about what's going on in our lives and ask any questions. And it's just a really fun time. Let's see what else we have in here. Okay, here's a question for you. First, Dylan Calkins, who actually just signed up for the Speed Therapy Academy. Sorry, I'm a little late. I had a quick question. What's your opinion on building the SN95 rear axle compared to buying the Cobra IRS and upgrading it? Pros and cons of both.
I mean, if you really want the car to work, I mean, the IRS hands down. The thing about the live axle is and if in the Academy we talked about this quite a bit. It's got a double splayed rear axle, so it's self-centering. And if you do the math, the roll center, which you've heard me talk about before, the geometric point the back of the car wants to roll around. If you do the math, the roll center on SN95 and Fox, for that matter, with that 4-link is like 18 inches high. It's almost in the trunk, and that's why they kind of wallow around so much. We had a really nice suspension package back then, but we haven't brought that back to market. But the IRS, I mean, the IRS just changes those cars completely. When we introduced our AGS 3.5 suspension in SEMA, I think it was 2000 on Kermie. We did a whole, clean sheet of paper, K-member, front geometry, and then we did the IRS upper lower control arms and geometry improved. Now, I could drive that car all day long and not get tired on track. I could put it anywhere I wanted. I mean, it was one of the most fun cars I ever built to drive on track. And being an SN95, it was by today's standards, it was a nice, light, little, nimble car that I could drive around. And then we had to start out with a V6 that Ford wanted me to build a V6 for SEMA because of something going on with the V8s. And they wanted to focus on V6s. So we did a supercharged V6, but later on it got switched over. I got a prototype FR500 motor from Ford Racing that we ran in there that it was a 4.6 FR500, and that car was just amazing to drive. So I just, if you can find an IRS, it's well worth the investment over the live axle. Until I can do a new 4-link for those cars, but that's at least a year and a half off.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, Steve Hammond has a question. He actually just joined the Speed Therapy Academy, I think last week, and he's getting your 4.5 AGS system. You've talked to him. You know who he is. Anyway, he asks, will the stock sway bar mounts work with front grip kit for S197?
Yeah. We don't. In fact, all we really do is we'll put like a aftermarket sway bar on, adjustable that's got 3 adjustments. But the sway bar mounts remain the same, and there's no reason to move them. Like I say, I keeping things simple. So yeah, we just put on an aftermarket sway bar that's a little bigger with 3 adjustments, and I always have people start in the middle hole, because then once you kind of get as we talk about, you get your tire pressures, then you get your cambers, and from there you start making other adjustments. But it's like you just have to adjust things and see what happens. That's why you have your notebook. When we talk about notebooks, Speed Therapy Academy, you get a notebook that comes with it, along with a whole bunch of dividers and some paper in there. But you just need to make notes. If you make it stiffer, what does the car do? You make it softer, what does the car do? Because getting the car really set up on track is not something to go out and do it one time. I tell people that if you build a brand new car for track, it can take you up to a full season to really get the things sorted out and working well, because there's so many things to try. And so, I just use the stock sway bar mounts, aftermarket sway bar urethane bushings, and works fine.
Okay, here's a question from Greg Drake. What is the weight difference between the 302 and the 351 Windsor?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. It's something probably you can look up on the internet.
Yeah, Kelvin says 50 pounds. So
yeah, I was probably somewhere in that range, because you got to remember the 351 has a taller deck, which means there's a lot more cylinder block, which means there's more weight. And the extra weight comes from the block. Also, the crankshaft's going to have a little longer strokes. That's going to weigh more. The rods are going to weigh more. So it's maybe 50 pounds. Taking 50 pounds off the front of a car is a lot of weight. It really makes the cars turn. So.
And then we have Tim Tomasak. He says, thanks to Kenny and Rich this week for advice. I'm listening while flushing my brakes. Remember he had a rotor question? So yeah. Thanks, Tim. Nice to see you here. This is Brad. We built a compound boost Windsor with a small turbo and medium-sized blower with a little bit of nitrous that keeps the charge cool. Talk about living life on the edge. That must have been one of his cars with JMS. So, and Calvin's got to run. Let's see. We have another question here. I think that is it. If anybody, this is last call for questions. So if you have any questions, this is the time to ask them. While we're waiting for questions, there's a lag in time, so I'll share a couple.
It was like a live axle differential cooling kit. Is that from us or from somebody else?
That Brad was posting that, so I don't know. I think it's something that he wasn't supposed to. So while we're waiting for the last call questions to come.
Yeah, as far as that with the live axle, for track days, I've never really put a diff cooler on a live axle car for track days. I mean, you're out there for 20 minutes, 25 minutes tops. You've got a lot of mass to absorb the heat. You definitely want to be sure that you have an overflow for the vent on a live axle. But for race cars, for like World Challenge cars, absolutely, you have to have a differential cooler. You have to have a transmission cooler, because racing racing makes a lot of heat everywhere. So for a full race that you're running 45 minutes, you have to have a diff cooler. For track days, I would say it's an option, but not really necessary. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Here's a couple. We're just, like I said, just waiting for last call questions come in. A couple announcements. This Sunday night is the last day to get your $200 discount on your 4.5 rear suspension. So if you attended Kenny's Wednesday private showing about a week ago on the K-Link 4.5 rear suspension, he offered you a $200 discount. Sunday evening at midnight, that offer is going down. So make sure you get that order in or email us or contact us somehow, and we'll make sure you get that discount. We also have Mustang Hub Magazine. Fall issue has a K-Link featured in it. So we'll be getting that. We haven't gotten the publication yet, but as soon as we get it, we'll show you or have a link to it. And again, remember to sign up for the Speed Therapy Academy. We have a lot of alumni in here today, and also a lot of new Speed Therapy Academy members. It's great to see you here. And let me look for questions.
I got something on the 4.5. It came from a conversation this week I was having with somebody that's writing a book on, I think, the 5 to 10 S197s, and he was curious. He wanted to know if it was patented. I said, yeah, it's patented. I mean, we got way too many years and way too much invested in this. And he said, well, what if somebody tried to copy it? And I said, somebody tries to copy that, we're coming down hard. Provisional patent was assigned a year ago, and since then we've actually filed a full patent application. All the fees are paid, so it's in the system, and I think it was written by a professional patent attorney. So it wasn't done by somebody in on the weekends, and he wrote it in such a way to give us the maximum protection, patent protection. And within there, I think he said he calls out 125, 127, something like different elements of the package. And I told this guy, anybody copies any one of those, and that's they're in trouble. And so what do you do? Just kind of send them a note to stop doing it? I said, no. Anybody does that, they're getting sued for patent infringement, plus damages, plus legal fees. I mean, we're not going to mess around. I mean, there's too much in that, and there's too many crappy people out there that know nothing about geometry suspensions that copy things. I don't copy, I create. You see, I do the R&D. Other people their R&D is called rip off and duplicate. So it's the patent application has been in for a while. So yeah, we're protected all the way back for a year ago.
So I think we were going to talk about the RPM Act this week, and we forgot it. We would have ran out of time anyway. So next week we'll talk about the RPM Act. It's very important that everybody participate in that. It's just super important. So anyway, I think that's the end of our show, Kenny. I don't have any other questions, but
okay.
So.
Well, in that case, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you watching. If you have some suggestions for things for me to talk about next week, send them in. Because like I say, I talk about what you want to learn about. And if nobody sends anything in, we'll go back and look at other questions that have come in. And then we'll pick some out and kind of build the program around that. So again, thanks for joining us. Remember the Speed Therapy Academy. Oh, I got my Speed Therapy Academy shirt on. That's also you get when you sign up. You get your notebook and you get your polo shirt. Speed Therapy Academy polo shirt. So it's a really good way to start the program. So with that, I think we'll sign off for today, and send me some ideas of what you want to talk about next week. Otherwise, just pull something out of the air. And then we might have some news for you next week on something, but just going to have to wait and see what happens this week. So with that, again, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it, and hope you learned something. And that's what I'm here for, is to kind of share quality information from my experience, not something I read or something I heard, and definitely not from the guy down the street or somebody else in the paddock, and absolutely positively not something I read on the internet. Two worst places to get information is the internet and the paddock. So with that, have a good rest of your weekend.